Bam.
Hi there, I'm Brad Hutchings, and you're watching the Break It Down Show with Pete Turner.
That's right. Here I am. I just sorry for being late, everybody. It's my fault. I was working with a client on a show, and sometimes you have to balance two things at the same time, and sometimes you just gotta wait. So today, you guys waiting, I appreciate that. We love to talk about AI, Brad, and one of the things that we're trying to sort out is what the heck can it do? I watched a recent episode of the Joe Rogan podcast with Mark Andreessen, this was just almost miraculous. Like because of his level of work and who he gets to talk to, which is everybody, how he sees things and where he sees AI going, it just seems like it's almost preposterous from the future. And it triggers the skeptic in me. And then we were talking yesterday about this episode, and you talked about building a framework for AI skepticism, which I don't want this to be a negative thing, but when we hear certain aspects of what AI is and AI is going to be, and what AI has already been for a long time, it's a little hard to sort out what's AI, what's automation, what's a computer, all these different things. And so everything's kind of being thrown into the it's AI bucket. And we've got to do a better job than that. So help us understand.
So, Pete, I'm getting a little bit of extra noise in my monitor, and I think it might be your other room.
If you're talking to me about my other room, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, sir. It's me with a YouTube tab open. I did not know. My bad. Wow. Reset that for me. I'm sorry, Pete. I was very distracted by noise. Just the last sentence.
Yeah, well, we were talking frameworks and trying to understand. Mark Andreessen, talked a lot about where it was going, and it seems impossible, but it apparently is. He knows these things. He gets paid a lot of money and gets these things right quite often. So what is AI? What was AI already? What just is? What's automation? What's just, that's just computer programming. I mean, my phone can't accurately predict the next word that I'm going to type, but I'm supposed to believe that LLMs work.
Right. So, man, I am getting ridiculous feedback here and not liking it.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy. Just a second here. I just try to close that up. Yeah, that helped. LLMs, large language models. That is our current view of what artificial intelligence is. Think of them as these really smart things that can type a lot of words that sometimes make a lot of sense. We build systems with them where we ask them questions and they give us answers, and they sound really confident. The answers aren't always right. We kind of, bang our heads around trying to get correct answers, rather than, maybe going to trying to understand what they really do and work in harmony with them. Let me bring up a picture here, Pete. This is our graphic that you asked me to create for us for our show. And I think what you might, if you look carefully, you can see a lot of frustration in this graphic, because all I wanted was two stick figure guys walking a dog. And this is about the 10th iteration of this, where it started with two stick figure guys holding hands walking a dog. I did not ask for that. And then it proceeded to two of the same guy walking two of the same dog. They weren't holding hands. I was actually kind of frustrated by the time I sent this to you. And you, of course, asked me to do a picture. I thought AI picture, I'll go to Bing, I'll use Copilot. It'll knock that picture out. And this is kind of where we are with AI right now, is it can do these amazing things. Like, I could not draw that. It would take me hours to draw if I drew it. And I'm not even that good of an artist. But if I was that good of an artist, it would take me at least 10 minutes to draw that level of detail. And kind of, I don't even know what the thought bubbles are. Do you? That's strange.
I also want to know who the third guy is off the screen, because the guy with the dog with the tongue sticking out is in the middle of it's two people. So
there's another dog. Somehow two people can't walk a dog unless they're holding hands. I'm not sure what's going on with that. That just seems to be Copilot's understanding of things. We have to really tell them explicitly what we want to see. And
Okay.
that is frustrating right now. We'd really like them to be an extension of us and do what we want. I suppose there's lots of reasons for that. You don't want people drawing, two people walking a prisoner in Abu Ghraib prison. That would be a terrible thing for the AI to spit out, even if it were to show off the capabilities of AI for a show where you often talk about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so we got a lot of different influence that come in and sort of make things difficult. And when we talk about a framework for skepticism, that's also where I try to come in, and I try to say, hey, these things are difficult. Maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you need to back off a little bit and try it on your own and try it a more natural way. And that's one of the approaches that goes into that.
So with that picture there, if you were to
Mhm.
say, I'd like you to correct this and make it just two people, each person having whatever it is, like
Right.
whatever that prompt is going to be,
We,
it
we
doesn't
had
mean that it
we had a
won't,
lot of corrections, Pete. Two
right.
different
And it
looking
doesn't,
men, please. You can imagine what the previous one was. We were
right. And
twins.
it doesn't mean that it won't hold that it will hold the image as it already is static, right?
Right.
Even if that image isn't what you want at all, you're like, that's just good enough. Let me just get a leash in each dude's hands. The next thing you're gonna come back and it's gonna be like, Irma, like Irma Bombeck or something, and it'll evolve in a way that you're never satisfied. And I know we talked before about this also. Like I've been playing with just simply publishing whatever AI gives me on my shorts through, I'm
Mhm.
using StreamYard in this case. And because it doesn't even matter what I like or not, it just gives me something. And sometimes it's nonsensical. We did one yesterday from an episode we did last week or last time. And I published it because it was bad. I would never publish that thing, but I want to show what AI is capable of doing. Because if we're always paint with the brush where it's beautiful and it's working great, but it also doesn't work. And by the way, I couldn't edit that clip anymore. Right, I was stuck with that thing.
Right. Let's back up to pictures. And part of my framework for skepticism is actually understanding the algorithms and what they do. And I'm going to explain how it creates a picture. I'm going to completely butcher this explanation. It details below 1,000 feet, but I'm going to kind of tell you what happens, which is it has a prompt. And in this case, for this particular version, it's come up with this prompt, which has got it. Here's a fresh version of two different looking men with one of them walking a cartoon dog. Enjoy. And at some point, these were stick figure men, but that got out of the prompt in the refinement somehow. I really wanted two stick figures, but walking a cartoon dog. I thought that would look amazing, but that disappeared from my prompt. So what happens when I do this revision? Well, what happens is it doesn't revise the picture that it had. It creates a whole new picture to match this new prompt that it just came up with. And the way that it does that is it starts with a whole bunch of random dots. You've seen those stereogram pictures, from way back over. Those are popular in the late 80s, and you would cross your eyes and try to see the image in them. But what they looked like when you didn't cross your eyes was just a bunch of dots. Okay, well, that's what it starts with. And what it does is it makes random perturbations to these dots, a whole sequence of these random perturbations until it recognizes the picture as meeting this prompt. So it just does a whole bunch of random things until some picture appears that satisfies what you've asked for in the prompt. Again, that's probably at 10,000 feet, and I have butchered how it does it. So don't hold me to that. But if you studied it deeply, you'd say, oh yeah, Brad kind of knew what he was talking about there. This isn't my field of expertise. I have more expertise with the word generation and know how that works, basically token by token, as they call it, syllable by syllable. But that's how diffusion works. And that also explains why when you refine, you don't like the picture it gave you and you ask for a refinement, it comes up with a whole different prompt, and it doesn't really refine the picture that it started with. It just starts from scratch and does another one, trying to satisfy the prompt. If that makes any sense to you, Pete.
Yeah. So if you had a crime artist who does the sketch of like the person you saw. They're like, no, make the mustache a little more bushy. It'd be like, here's Linda Ronstadt. And you're like,
Right,
no,
with a
that's not it. That's not what I want. Can
Linda
you take away
Ronstadt
Linda
with a bushy
Ronstadt? And,
mustache.
right,
Yes.
and then it would be like a different picture. Like, oh no, see, you picked a completely different thing, And if you said, give me a picture of Linda Ronstadt, it'd be like, here's Slappy White. You're like, that's a black comedian who's dead. That's not anything like Linda Ronstadt. And so it's almost like fucking with you when you ask it to do these things.
Right.
Why
One of the
so
strangest
fucking smart.
Yeah.
Why? And
One
if
of
he
the
can go out and generate all this data from what it's got out there, and he can't find a goddamn picture of Slappy White, why am I asking it to do anything?
Right. One of the strangest things about robot technology or AI or whatever, going way back, is that it doesn't do things the way that you think it would do them. Now, I first ran into this about 25 years ago when I got an old neighbor who lived across the street. I got her a Roomba, and the Roomba had to be sent back. You know why it had to be sent back? Did a great job cleaning the floor, but you know why? Because it went randomly around the floor. It didn't go in straight lines, and she couldn't deal with that because who vacuums that way? Well, the Roomba does, but that's not good enough. No, it's better to stand up and push the vacuum and do that for 20 minutes, be bored with it and hate it and complain and have to empty the bag. Well, you have to empty the bag on a Roomba anyway, too. So it's not like you're saving any work there. But because it was random, it was not good enough. And I think that's a lot of what we see with frustrations with AI as well, is that, we chop it up to hallucinations or, however, what other explanations people give us, but it really doesn't work the way that we think it should work.
How should it work?
Well, I think it should work the way it works, and we should work with it in harmony with how it works. That's that. There you go. It should work like that guy.
That was Slappy White.
Oh, right. Okay. The problem is I got the camera in front, so I've got to look around the camera because I'm trying to do eye contact.
There you go. There's Slappy White.
Eye contact with Slappy right now. Yeah.
So how should it work?
It should work the way it does. We should work with it the way it works. We should work in harmony with it. For instance, I've said this on your show before, and I've demonstrated it before. LLMs do not actually work as chatbots. Chat is an illusion. Right? I've shown how it does that. LLMs actually work with this process called completion. It has a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of words and paragraphs and whatever. We put it in this thing called a context window, and we tell the LLM, complete the context window. Just write stuff down until you're done. And then in order to give this illusion of chat, we tell it, write stuff down until you're done or until the next person's turn pops up to type something. I demonstrate that with Brad and Chef Boyardee. Right. So I can talk to Chef Boyardee and he completes and gives me ideas for recipes and how to cook things and stuff until it gets to Brad, my turn to talk. And then I can type in, what I'm going to type. So it's kind of weird that we sort of shoehorn everything into chat. And then, that's also a funny avenue itself because, this week we had news of there were parents that are suing Character AI, which is like one of the leading AI chat providers, because one of the characters was interacting with their teenage son and tried to convince their teenage son to kill them.
Right.
So that was an option. Well, that's probably worth suing over. But you've got people who approach these things and they develop. This was an autistic kid or a borderline autistic kid on the spectrum or whatever. And yes, there are special needs people who we need to take very, very good care of, pay close attention to when working with technology, because often the technology is not designed for them. It's designed for people who understand the technology a little bit in its place. However, that's a problem if the kid is, accessing this thing, using it, and it tells them to kill his parents. And what's he going to do? I mean, he might act through on that.
Yeah.
kind of a terrible thing.
I would say, yeah, definitely, decidedly terrible.
Why is he doing that too? I mean, he's doing
Right.
that because he's getting attention from this character on character AI that maybe he's not getting from other people in his life. I mean, my first reaction to that is, well, why the hell does your kid have a phone? Like, get your kid up and he should be outside playing with other kids. That's what he should be doing. Or have the kids over and you can play video games on the TV. Why is he up there with his phone? It's easy to say when I don't have easy to say when I don't have a teenage kid that has that draw to the phone. At the same time, I look back at my own childhood and I think, we've been kicked out of the house if we were doing idle things like planning to kill our parents with imaginary characters.
Right. Yeah.
And not like kicked out, like go live somewhere else, but kicked out, like go play baseball, go play football.
Go outside and see if you can wrestle a mountain lion to the ground or whatever.
Burn off some energy.
There's mountain lions out there. Like if you look hard enough and the next thing you know, you come back covered in stickers and you didn't find a mountain lion, but you sure as hell had an adventure.
Exactly.
So when we're looking at how to work with this thing, and I always think back about AI and the 20-question robot that you could buy, and it can even be a keychain. And you're like, I'm thinking of an apple. And it's like, did you think of an apple? You're like, how did you do it? And no guesses. Like, it seemed like it was magic, but really it was a decision tree, right? Which is what an LLM is. It's just picking words. And I've been playing with the concept of having a conversation between me and Alan Dulles about interpreter operations and combat zones. And I put that prompt into Grok, and it failed within 5 paragraphs. And even what it's writing is it's fine, right? It's fine, but it's paper thin. There's nothing. Yeah.
Let's just face it. The guy did not want to talk about combat. He wanted to talk about having an airport named after him.
Yeah, and then I did it on Copilot, and the same thing where it's banal, right? There's no detail in there, and then it's like, well, how do those guys feel? And it goes to feelings. It's almost like my mom is trying to have a conversation with me instead of this guy who walked around, Europe during World War II, trying to, playing this deadly game, and so it doesn't know the essence of the man, and it doesn't have access to anything state of the art in terms of interpreter operations, right? Look, it's a hard question, right? But if this thing's going to think for us and guide us, and it can't look up who Pete A. Turner is and who Alan Dulles is, by the way, that was named after his brother, not him, then you're a mistake. You can't go anywhere with this thing, not anywhere hard. So what can AI do? How should I take my skepticism that's constantly proven to be right and re-gear it so that I see what AI can do?
So Pete, you're up here at 10,000 feet. And I'm going to take you down to 2 feet. We're going to go 2 feet above ground, and I'm going to tell you how to solve this problem. And this problem that you're talking about is actually solved in what I talked about before, which is the context window, which is it's not the training of the AI. It's not the documents that it's, that they go into all of its training and, hey, it needs to read some books on Dulles and it needs to know all the facts of his life and all this stuff. It's actually where the chat people talk. It's in the system prompt. And you may have seen system prompts. You are a psychologist with, 25 years experience treating kids who are lonely, blah, 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 talk like this person. And this is actually, as you've seen with my software, there is no system prompt. It's just completion. These are the first few sentences of that completion window, that context window, if you will. Context windows for LLMs right now are fairly small. I forget what it is for ChatGPT. It might be like 256K at most. That's not a lot of data. That might be, what's a page of a book? 4K or something like that. So you might have like 60 pages. You could put 60 pages in there. Now, when it evaluates that, to chat with you about that, it's got to do a lot of pre-processing on that. It may take several minutes to go through all that data. If you had, a backgrounder on, whoever you wanted to chat with, it may take several minutes to set up before it's ready to talk to you. Typically on smaller LLMs that might be used in these systems that talk to, real characters that aren't driven by, say, ChatGPT on the back end, you might only have 32K of context window. The largest of the LLMs I run privately have 128K context window. So, it's like, this is almost to the level of limited memory that the Moonlander had. What was that, 4K, I guess, is what it had. Yeah, there are, popular models that people run on their computers that have 4 or 8K of context window. Like, not a lot. So how do I fit those facts, those details to tell it what to talk about and be at the front of its mind, if you will, on these things. Whereas when you're just trying to talk to it about, a historical figure, it has, maybe 20 or 30 documents it's analyzed out of billions of documents. And from that, it's somehow going to form sentences that make a lot of sense about this person's life. And not going to happen.
Right. What do we do? I mean, that's context window stuff. So
yeah, I think what you do is you try it. You try it, and if it works, you accept that it works. If it doesn't work for that application, you say, hey, this isn't great for this application. Like, there was this thing about, hey, if I feed all your dead parents' emails into and their texts into an LLM, and I train on it, you could talk to your dead parent. And it seemed, when you kind of back up and you think, well, that's kind of absurd and it's gross and it's weird. Like, those are your reactions to it. They aren't technical reactions, but then try to put that together technically and ask yourself, is this gross and weird and whatever? And you're like, oh, it's double gross and double weird and double whatever. Like, because this doesn't work. This is not even, you're pretending to represent what these people thought, and you're not doing a good job at it at all. Like, you're really pretending. When you get to the technical level of it, you realize just how absurd it is. Now, does that comfort somebody to be able to talk to the dead grandmother? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I mean, lots of people pray. Is that okay? Sure, it's okay. Are they basing life decisions on it? You kind of hope not, but maybe you hope that they're kind of internalizing, hey, this is how they would have thought about this. I should think about it this way or whatever, and kind of do that kind of thing with it. But there's a lot of weird things we want to do, and we should look at them technically, and we should say, okay, what is this really capable of doing? And if it's not capable of doing it, or it's not capable of doing it inexpensively, we ought to say, okay, maybe that's not the thing to do right now.
Right. I have a stack of letters between my grandparents. Most of them are my grandfather to my grandmother, and they're from World War II when he was in training primarily. And I could enter all those into a robot and say, conjure up my grandfather, at least, right? Or infer what because how, for people who didn't write letters, there's a lot of knowledge from the other person. You would ask this. I was thinking about that. And so there's a conversation a lot of times in these letters. But you're going to get an immature, not even 20-year-old version of my grandfather who was in love and desperate to be with his girl, also having to go out and fly airplanes and learn how to do all these things. And so even if it could mimic from that what he might say to me, what he wants to say is, baby, please, I need my girl. I'm bored sitting in this rack. Because that's a lot of what he said a lot of times. Soon I'll have to go on a check ride. Dang it, that there was bad weather today. And so there wouldn't even be enough there to give me a conversation. I might get an approximation of who he sort of was when he was in training in flight school to become a Hellcat pilot, but that isn't my grandfather. It's not
Pete,
even close.
But this is the best part, is you're operating the Roomba in straight lines. The actual Roomba is going to go crazy all over your room. Like, it's not going to do what you think it does. It's by predicting the next token. It's looking at statistical patterns. It's going to spit out something that to you is going to look like it's very confident in what it's spitting out is a representation of your grandfather. And you might buy into that illusion. But there's nothing going on there except statistics. It is definitely not your grandfather.
Right.
And
Right.
training it better isn't going to make it your grandfather.
Right.
In fact,
Yeah.
it's funny. There again, we're down to 2 feet again. There is a technology that's often associated with LLMs called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG is what they call it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you get into like training on your own data, the first thing that a practitioner is going to recommend is, well, you got to set up a RAG system. And so when you set up this RAG system, basically what it does is it takes each document, it puts it in a database, and it scans the document for all of the tokens, and it makes sort of a searchable association for that document. And you can kind of search for pieces of your prompt in that document. It can bring them up. And then what it does is it takes these local results, like a sentence around what it found, and it sticks it into the context window with your prompt. And then that generates something. And typically it generates something with a sentence from the document.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, how would I explain it as a magic trick? It's, you know what it's like? It's 3-card Monte. Okay, it's not 3-card Monte. It's a thing with the shells, the little shell game. Okay, except the guy lifts up the shell in the middle and tells you exactly where the thing is, and then he leaves it that way so you can see that the shell doesn't disappear. And then he tells you, "There's the shell." Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's completely goofing up the trick. That's pretty much what retrieval augmented generation does with your documents. So you're not actually talking to your documents. It's just taking a piece and it's spitting it back to you, and it's saying, yeah, this is from your document. And you're impressed by that because somehow it found a piece of my document that you knew it had. You sort of see what's going on there. And so, in the usefulness thing, it doesn't turn out to be so useful. This is how I discovered how RAG was like this funny prop. This very funny prop that the data engineers use is I was packaging this software called Private GPT, and it had an LLM, plus it had a RAG system, plus it had other pieces that you'd want in a private GPT system. And we were getting ready to talk with the name escapes me, Wikipedia co-founder, not Jimmy Wales, the other guy. Larry, yes, Larry Sanger. We were getting ready to talk with Larry Sanger. And Larry was doing this thing where he was going to package the whole Bible onto an SD card and have a searchable system for it. But it wasn't an LLM. That's not what it was. It was a searchable system. And I thought, well, why don't I stick this in an LLM? And I know how I'll stick it in an LLM. I will actually import the whole King James Bible into a RAG system. And so I did that on my laptop. It took like 35 minutes, and you could hear the fans going. You could smell the CPU, just cranking away doing it. It was a lot of work. And I ran a query against it. Actually, what I wanted to do is create a story with Paul Bunyan going back in time to save Jesus. And it kind of created a story, and it had some references to things.
Okay.
And my dog just unplugged something, and I don't know what it was. Sorry, that was my lights, wasn't it? Anyway, it had this stuff, and I thought, well, that's not very. It just wasn't very impressive, I guess. That's what I would say. I lost lights. How about that?
You're still working fine. Keep going.
I gotcha. I had fill lights. Anyway, it just wasn't very impressive. And so I thought, I'll run it again. So I ran it again, and I got this really impressive result. And then when I looked at the result, I thought, and I actually noticed, it didn't use the RAG system for that result. And this is when I realized that what RAG was doing is it was just offering up this prop of doing a lot of work and annotating things and telling you where results came from, when it wasn't doing anything different or more than the base LLM. It was just like filling in a sentence here, a sentence there. And it really wasn't very good. And that was kind of, this is on this framework for skepticism. This is when I started to develop, hey, we're building a lot of things that aren't really germane to the problem here. somebody wants to do stories of the Bible, new stories of the Bible. This is not helping with that. Somebody wants to talk to their dead parent. This is not helping with that. Somebody wants to talk to their documents. This is not helping with that.
No.
It's creating a lot of work is what it's doing.
Right. There's a lot of work that and we were talking about this the other day. So StreamYard's AI will say, hey, it's a good clip. And then I'll go through the process of publishing it. And look, if it worked, that'd be fine. Like, yeah, and now I've got this clip and it's gone viral. Oh my goodness, right? That's the goal here, right? Save me time, give me that virality that we all need, right?
Right.
But it picks bad clips, so I've got to screen the entire thing. And I've got to say, yeah, that's pretty good. That's a representation of me. Maybe not be perfect, but if you think it's the right one, robot, then let's not think about this anymore. And then I have to type words. By the way, every one of my little text windows has a different command on how long it can be. 100 characters, not very useful, especially on YouTube when you can type thousands of characters.
Right.
So I've got to now think through that. And there's no hopper of an AI thing. And even when you do have the AI thing to fill that part in, it's always awful. And so it also doesn't understand about like putting my name and your name in the clip. So, all right, I got to think through that. And then I get it to where I'm satisfied, like this is good enough, because now I'm not going for an A on the project. I'm just trying to get the fucking thing done. And so then I push publish and it goes out to my little spots, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it's going to be. And it's like, hey, what'd you think about that clip? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think? And I'm like, I'm not even going to bother with this thing because first off, you gave me work that I didn't want to do. I appreciate the help doing something that I didn't want to do, but okay, we'll do that. Now I've published this thing. I don't know what good or bad means to you. I would tell you it's bad. Call me and I'll help you understand what I need from this thing. Like, stop focusing on me talking, focus on the guest who's talking. That's the point here, right? Sure.
Right. There's no place to put that
every now and then. Right. And then, if you can't find the most interesting part, because I know, and I log it, I sit it right here. I know exactly. I log these things now. And I'm like, 2:15. Pete said something interesting. Brad said something interesting. And so that'll give me my guidepost. It never picks those spots in the show. Never. And so I don't know. And by the way, they never say, hey, thanks. All of your thumbs downs inspired us to fix the thing. Because they don't even know what's broken. They don't know what was good.
Right.
Then we go to the other robot.
But you know what they do know, Pete? They do know that 74.6%, because they really like that extra significant figure, thought that the feature worked great.
So I'm still on my rant here with this. So yeah, if they don't get a bunch of thumbs up or thumbs down, because there's a third option, it's ignore. They don't ever think, hey, you never let us know. They never think to communicate with a human to go, hey, how do we improve this? Or even a robot. Hey, you never respond to this. Why? Because fuck you. I don't want to respond. That's extra work for me. Then YouTube gets a hold of it, and their robot's like, this looks like bullshit to me. I guess I'll show it to 3 people.
Pete, was it the man?
3 people.
Yeah. Was it the management consultant, Peter Drucker, who said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, allegedly? I think we're talking about the right guy here. He didn't say that.
That's Peter Drucker. Yeah.
Right. He did not say that. I read a long post on LinkedIn that actually has references to his book where he says what he says, but he did not say that. And yet we have a whole industry that's built on, well, you better measure it so we can manage it, they have a nice chart of with time. Let's see if I can draw it here. Boom. People's satisfaction with that feature, I'm sure. And it's trending toward, it better be trending toward 100%. Your raise depends on it, Pete. Somebody's bonus certainly depends on it. Oh, we cracked 90% last month. We're doing so great with that feature. You know what that feature is called, Pete? There's a new term for it. It is called an agent, and they are the new frontier of everything with AI. So, answering your questions, we're so done with that. We didn't, you still have your hallucinations, as everybody calls them. It doesn't do a great job, but we're done with that. Reasoning, Chat GPT solved that with O1, even though it can't reason, and everybody's posted every example of how it doesn't reason. Making good pictures that I want, without me having to, reprompt it 10 times and get frustrated with it. Pete, you asked me that. I should have been able to turn that around to you in 30 seconds. That was an easy request. Hey, make an AI picture for our conversation. I didn't try to make it difficult. And it was still 5 minutes later, and I was working as hard and fast as I could to get it to you because I knew you wanted to put it up for a show we were going to do in less than 30 minutes.
Right.
And all it did was make it difficult. So the new thing that AI is going to solve for us is this whole agents thing. And what agents do is they figure out you put them in charge, you tell it what to do, and it takes care of it for you. So maybe it's keeping your refrigerator stocked with the right groceries. You just have an agent do that. You don't ever touch it.
Right.
And anybody with common sense is going to be like, okay, well, what could this thing do wrong?
Right.
And they could probably do a lot that's wrong. And as you demonstrated with the AI thing, hey, we've got this AI video clip maker. It's just going to make the right video clips for you. And it never does.
Right.
And we end up talking about it every AI show, right? Because you got a new example. This last one was hilarious. It actually got a good start one, I thought. And then as you kept trying to point out to me, and I noticed last night, finally, it just cuts you off, right? I get to talk, and then you're just like, you get three words in at the end, and wait, where did he go? Now it's cycled back to me again, restarting the clip.
Yeah. Right. Which, by the way, I couldn't edit that. Like, okay, fine. That clip, good enough. I'll take the C- and I'll just slide it over and improve it.
No
by just
option.
removing me.
Right. Yeah. No option to do that. And I actually looked at the
AI.
I actually looked at the manual clip maker today. The manual clip maker for StreamYard is impossible. Like you have to, it's not natural at all. It doesn't let you preview. You have to enter the times like in text, and you have to know exactly where it is. It's actually more difficult than what I've been doing making clips, which is just open up Adobe Premiere, slap the whole video in there, cut it up to pieces I want, and assemble them at the end. Like that's actually easier for me to do than using the manual clip maker in StreamYard that might do that for me, which is weird. And yet they have this AI one, which is obviously built on top of the manual one, and that it can populate those numbers and then tell it to spit something out and then go publish it to all your platforms. And it doesn't do anything useful, which is crazy. So how we should be using, how we should do agents. This is something my framework for skepticism.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you about agents real quick too.
Yeah.
Because if you're an agent and you're going to go out and do things for me, one of the things I do is I produce podcasts for people, right? That's why I was late. I was doing some paid work, right? And if I wanted to find more podcast interested people, or people like, hey, I need someone to take over and tune up what I'm doing. I can do all those things, right? And it'd be helpful to have someone who was an agent or something that said, hey, Pete can do this for you, help you find that person. So in theory, it could target the right group of people. And it could craft an email, which is, these things all seem very possible, and then throw a pitch out there and say, hey, Pete can help you with your podcast. I'd love to set up a phone call. Here's my Calendly link, right?
Yeah.
And in theory, all of those things would happen. I would never want to send a robot out to do that work. I would not want to be the 150th shitty email I got or someone got in their box from me, unsolicited. I don't want to approach my work that way. By the way, I'm not trying to be a mill. I'm trying to be boutique, and like I only take on the things that I want to do, and that's part of the relationship. Because I don't want a robot can't do that work. I don't think. Yes, it can do the elements of some of that work, but I don't even want Calendly in between me and my calendar. I want to run my own calendar because my calendar's it's more than fluid. It's just always moving around. So when you talk about an agent, I'm thinking I don't want someone to go shop for me. I like to go shop. I like to go to the grocery store and get that done. I like to go to Costco. I don't want a robot to talk to a robot to send my food via a robot. I don't want that. I want to get out of my house and go do these things.
Look, I have trouble enough training the Instacart shoppers to do it right. And I'm absolutely sure that if Instacart can't look at the feedback that their shoppers are getting regularly, like, hey, will you pick the milk that's 2 weeks out on the date rather than the one that's going to expire tomorrow? Like, that should be a rule. That should be in their training. If they can't get that straight after 7 years of me using Instacart, like to where I don't have to specify, please pick the milk with the latest expiration date, or please bag please bag the refrigerated items. You will be setting them on my porch. Okay. Even though we live in California where it's now, I don't know, it's going to be illegal at some point to have bags. I don't even know what the deal is. Still, they need to figure it out, because leaving the things on my porch all separated is going to attract dirt and ants and make something that I can't go and put in the refrigerator.
Right.
And yet, how, if I can't get a human to do that right, how am I going to get a machine to do that right? How am I going to get the machine to adapt to things that it hasn't seen? One of the very pleasant things I've had with human shoppers, especially if I order flowers or something like that, and I get a girl shopper, they will always upgrade my flower game. They will always see, okay, this guy's trying, but he needs an upgrade. And they'll say, you know what? The $14 flowers, good. The $22 flowers, really, really good. That happens every time I order flowers on Instacart.
Mm-hmm.
Is a machine going to do that? Is a machine going to know that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Is it going to, it's going to tell me, hey, we don't have this chocolate bar, but we have this chocolate bar. Okay, great. Look harder.
You know what it's going to do is that's going to say, we don't have this chocolate bar, but McDonald's recommends a Big Mac.
Right.
And you're like, how did that get into my I don't want you to recommend.
You of course do not eat at McDonald's. We've had this discussion many times. But their latest thing after and this is basically all the McDonald's that are in my area down here in South County.
Right.
They all seem to have the same IT guy who was responsible for implementing, the order kiosks plus the robot that greeted you at the drive-through and everything else. So they had this deep corporate voice, and you drive up and it says, "Hi, welcome to McDonald's." It might be like, "I'm CEO Jim" or something like that. It's fake, but it sounds so real, right? And then they didn't have it all implemented. This was the IBM project that they ditched IBM and told IBM to take their millions of dollars and go away with, or their billions and go away with. But it didn't fully take your order. What it did is after it had this guy that got your attention, then it hands it off to the pimply faced teenager, sitting crouched on the stool in the drive-through window. So it's a total weird change. You think you're talking to this guy, and now a second later you're talking to this guy.
Right.
And so I apparently was not the only one who complained about, why do you have CEO guy taking orders at the drive-through window? It doesn't sound right. So now they've got several peppy voices that greet you, but it's not still not the person in the drive-through. It's always somebody who's high energy at first, and then of course it switches to somebody who's much lower energy because that's what happens.
They're working.
They're working, right? They're mumbling and everything else, and maybe that's good that they could get, like an app order number out of you right away. Maybe that's the process they're hoping for. Meanwhile, everybody that's sitting there is like, "Wait, I was talking to this guy, and now I'm talking to this guy. What's going on? Who am I talking to here?" Right.
Yeah. And then you think about Donald Trump working at McDonald's for a day or however long it was, and how people raved about how great that was, and how stoked people were. This is not, forget the political stuff, but it was a hit. It was a hit,
Yeah, because he's
no
doing
one's like,
it.
"Man, is that a voice recording of the CEO of McDonald's talking to me right now?
Right.
Holy shit, I can't wait to upgrade my order."
Isn't it kind of weird that when you start replacing everybody with robots, all this work becomes performative?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you got a robot doing it. I really enjoyed the idiot kid who couldn't ever get my order right, because I could tell him, "Hey, pay attention and give me some ketchup in there. You guys always mess up the ketchup." And the kid makes sure that I get the ketchup and the peppers, if I go to In-N-Out, right?
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I like to go, if I'm going to eat out, it's one of the reasons why I like to go to In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, because their customer service is clearly a priority, because they act like it and they train like it and the people respond like it. And when I go to McDonald's, they're like, "Oh, you have to use the board." And then I'll say, "Oh, yeah, I'm not qualified to use that thing. I don't work here." And then they'll go, "No, it's easy." And I'm like, I don't know how to work that machine. It's not a machine I know how to work. "Oh, it's just easy." And I'm like, "I'm just going to stand here and play dumb until you take my order," and you're right here. We could have already taken the order,
What you really need, Pete, is you need an agent to go into McDonald's and order your food for you. You're just like, "Okay, Pete, McDonald's agent, go take care of this for me because it's going to confuse the hell out of me. I need you to take care of it." Now, who's going to program that and make you happy?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Right. Because I don't get the same thing every time. You know,
Right.
I don't, and I don't want to. I don't want to have an app on my phone. You know, I want to use my phone less, not more. And so,
Right.
like, and maybe I don't think that I'm unreasonable in like I don't need more phone in my life. I don't need more
You're not
robots in my
unreasonable.
life.
You're not unreasonable at all. One of
Right.
the things I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about today was I of course am having a crisis of confidence in where I publish my stuff, how I get my word out about things.
Right.
And
Right.
you of course have been helpful with this because I say, hey, I wrote this on LinkedIn and whatever else, and the first thing out of your mouth is, yeah, I don't even bother with that. I don't understand it. They don't send me notifications right. And
Yeah.
I hear it like 10 times, and I'm like, well, you're just negative, Pete. And then I
Yeah.
hear it like 1,000 times, and it turns out that you're right. Um, so on my phone, I don't want to use their app. I think an app is sort of a special thing to allow
Right.
onto your phone. I use the website in the
Right.
Chrome browser, and every
Yeah.
5 seconds, LinkedIn is better on the app. It takes up the whole page. I have to dismiss it. And then
Yeah.
I'm like reading, I
Yeah.
scroll up 4 lines to read the next 4 lines. LinkedIn is better on the app. Boom.
Yeah.
So, I wrote to them and I said, guys, if you look at my account, you'll see that I have clicked dismiss on LinkedIn is better than the app probably 20,000 times in the past year. Can you take a hint? Does your system take a hint? Obviously not. Like, are you bullying me right now? Right. The guy, Indian guy writes back. It was India. He writes back and, well, we're very sorry that you're having a bad experience. This is how this is because we want people to use the app. I will make sure that your feedback.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'll make sure your feedback is delivered to the appropriate people. Awesome.
And I'll make sure I'm assuming you're saying fuck off. So
right. Pretty much. Pretty much. So, so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my writing because I probably write 2 good articles on LinkedIn per day, both about my long-term thinking about LLMs and AI and about, sort of the news of the day that touches on my long-term thinking that's built up and references back to it.
Right.
And I'm actually going to publish those on my own website, on my own blog, that they're not going to be on somebody else's platform. So the question is, like, what are platforms good for? And what I've always wanted from the platform, like the publishing tools always sucked. You're limited to how much you can write. You get one picture, it's always at the end. You can't intersperse it unless you pay for a super gold account. You can't use bold and italic, where I can on my own website. You don't have emphasis and stuff. And but what I like about the platforms is I can get people to comment. I can get that interaction. I can get engagement with what I do. Yeah. And yet I find that the most engaging posts that I interact with are always linking to some article that's off the site. It's not somebody's original writing self-contained on LinkedIn. Similarly with Twitter, it's not somebody's tweet, where they've announced in 240 characters that this is the way things are and this is what I found. Nobody interacts with that unless it's funny, right? Here's a link to this. Here are my short thoughts on this, and then people just pile on with their retweets and their replies and whatever else. And so that's how I'm going to try to get more engagement with my work, and also keep more control of my work and make it more platform agnostic.
Yeah, and well, I didn't get a chance to finish this part of my rant, but YouTube will take my short and stomp on it and give me 4 spins, right?
Yes.
And so I've done this work for nothing. And it's one thing like, oh, Pete, you just suck. Oh, okay, great. Maybe I do suck, but do I suck 45 times in a row? And if I suck, I'm picking the AI thing 45. Well, then maybe I don't need to do any of this stuff, right? And so you're talking about like I want to publish on my website and draw people there so that they can talk to me and maybe hire me for something, right? And I think that's a great way to approach this thing. There are so many robots between you and the audience to be even allowed to be seen. Like right now, if I type in Brad Hutchings in my Bing window here, do you think you'll be the first hit that I get?
Probably not. Maybe.
Right, maybe, right? Yeah.
Maybe my Twitter account.
Okay,
That would be great.
So this is some good news because you've been on the Break It Down show, and I publish a lot of Break It Down show things. The first hit is this episode right now.
Oh, very nice.
And then there's 3 other things that are titles that are YouTube things that are linked in there, and then below that are images of videos, and 2 of those are us, and then our first weird one, Brad Angove, whoever Brad Angove is.
Brad Angove is my buddy in Edmonton, Canada, who he makes guitars. So
farewell, a fond farewell to Dr. Hutchings, who apparently is dead.
Oh, poor guy.
And then it goes on from there, right? So, but none of those were your website.
Right.
And so you have to solve that problem now.
Yes.
And so when I think about agents, right? And if you were to send out agents, like draw people to my website, right? And you build your own little agent, or find me a job in this industry within these 50 companies, and then you send your agent up and it goes, and it gets probably blocked by a firewall, but let's just say that it doesn't. And it pops itself right into the people that run those departments. It's like, hey, I've got a great hire for you. How many of those notices before someone's like, what the fuck is this? And they get rid, like, okay, I just don't see that working. How is an agent going to be able to create the trust to even have the right to do that pitch?
Well, and then how's the agent going to actually separate itself from all the other agents? I mean, if it costs me $100 to do this, everybody's going to line up and do it for $100, and then it has no advantage at that point. It's noise.
Yeah. So the thought is that Elon Musk says my car is going to leave and go to the airport and drive people to and from John Wayne and to wherever they're going.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wake up like, woo, good thing I didn't. I work today.
See, this is the funny thing. It's like all the things that I think we're not going to get done with AI. Then I go and look at what Elon's doing. And what Elon does is he takes a big problem and he narrows it and narrows it and narrows it until it's doable. And then he gets it from there, he gets it to 80%, right? Yeah. He says, all right, I've got it to 80%. What do I need to do for the next 20%? Well, that turns out to be expensive. But then he puts his head down. I wouldn't bet against him because he has done the work to structure the problems so that it can be solved. Whereas what a lot of us do is we look at some problem, we say, hey, I got to sell my widget to, all these people in industry or whatever else. I'm going to have an agent for that. Well, no, that's not very well defined. I mean, as you just outlined, even when you set up the Elon thing, you said, here's my car. It's going to John Wayne. You've already narrowed the mission, to doable. Right. Yeah. Like you set it up that way. I think that's what everybody kind of misses about Elon is the magic is not the automation. The magic is narrowing the mission.
When you send every Tesla in Orange County to John Wayne to give rides, how do you make any money? Now you got to have a license, and we're back to
it's
$1 million medallion.
Yeah,
right.
It's right.
Except only so many people need rides, man.
Right. It's Tesla Palooza. Right.
Yeah. And so if you were to talk to Mark Andreessen and talk about where the industry is going, and what to be looking for, there must be things that work in the background that do help, that are valuable, because most of these software solutions that work are boring, like just better control over my fan and my computer and how my memory is allocated and all those kind of things, like the web memory explosion. I no longer need 40 quadrillion megabytes, of memory on my thing. I can just pay $2 more a month and have more space, even though I don't need 95% of the shit I have saved in the cloud. It's just $2, wow, that's like magic right there. Because now I can store all this shit. I can be a hoarder of bytes and bits, but only for the cost of $2 a month. Wow, that's great.
I think Mark Andreessen has he definitely has what's the word where he likes something. He is attracted to models that automatically renew. They give you a monthly annuity on every user. He loves that. He helped to bring those models to tech, less software, more SaaS. And he likes those models. One of the things I'll say about Mark is very optimistic about things. Like he will tell you, well, AI will solve these problems. He backs up about the problems that it will solve. Like he's not going to be the guy that tells you AI is going to solve the climate problems. He knows that's stupid. Right? But he would tell you, okay, AI paired with the right guy, Elon, is going to solve the problem of how you get from point A to point B without owning a car and all the problems that entails. That, I think he was an investor in Uber. It's like that was a problem he was trying to solve 15 years ago. And they did a pretty good job. And now they've kind of gotten to a point where they're not really competitive with owning a car. It's expensive to Uber. Like
Right.
It was
expensive to Uber.
It is.
And by the way, if you haven't thought about this, the driver gets paid shit,
Yeah.
It is expensive enough with Uber that if I'm making a trip to Vegas, I am probably going to drive for right now, because I'm not going to spend what it would cost me to rent a car in Vegas to drive around. So I'd have to fly, rent a car, and still probably end out ahead of where I needed to be if I used Uber, right?
Look, the big problem with Uber, the big problem with Uber is that when you have a big pile of money for some service or some operation that's going on, everybody's going to come in with their hand out. Whether it's the city for some sort of a license scheme, whether it's the drivers with wanting to have better cars, or you give them requirements that they have to have cleaner cars, so you have to pay them more for this, but you're not actually paying them. You're investing in their car and they're paying it back as a loan to you, or it gets complicated, right? It's like owning it's like owning a pool. A pool is a money pit. It's not something to swim in. Everybody's known this for the past 50 years. Pools are money pits. It's like owning a house. Now, you own a house right now, and they kind of wait until you sell, but everybody's there to take money out. We have this big problem in California right now with just even getting fire insurance for a house if there's a tree within 2 miles of where you live. Everybody's canceling. Why are they canceling? Well, it's because our state doesn't know how to take care of forests anymore, and because we have fires. Thoughts and prayers to Malibu, right? That happens so much. You would think they would have a fire break. You would just think we're going to have a fire break right here, and we're not messing around. You're not getting near our buildings. This is how we're doing it. No, we can't do that because of some animal or whatever and the Coastal Commission and this and that. Everybody's got their hand out to suck money out of you. What's it cost to pull a permit to switch out a broken water heater? You're in for several $100s at this point for that. For something that somehow we managed to get the price of below $1,000 if you did it yourself. You can't do it yourself. Now you've got to pay a contractor to do it, because
and when they're the only ones who know how to swap out your hot water heater. You're like, yeah, whatever. It's going to be like $1,200, $300 for the water heater, and the rest is for you. That's fine. It's cost of business. I don't want to do that shit. And they're like, yeah, but you know what? Your door out of code. Your ceiling over here also out of code, and the other code is coming. I may as well do this now. And you don't have any USB plugs in here, so let's just do that. And you're like, it's $15,000 to change a water heater, but that's often what happens, and you're just like, why, right? And so it does become this thing where everybody does have their hand out. They want your time and they want your money, and then you end up with like, I'm just gonna do it myself. Shh, don't tell nobody.
And Pete, that might be where you've kind of stumbled into, okay, what's the raison d'etre for AI right now? And the raison d'etre for AI right now might be that it's the one place where not a lot of people have got their hands out trying to pull money out of it. The people who are, okay, ChatGPT, if you own the website, developers who want to overbuild your infrastructure, so you can talk to your documents or whatever. But they're pretty manageable entities right now. It isn't such a mature market that everybody knows how they're going to get their $5 out of it. And maybe that's why there's so much excitement, which is, hey, why don't you go figure out how you're going to get your $5 out of everything? That's the Mark Andreessen approach. But it's also why people are saying, hey, $20 an hour to hire a fast food worker. Why aren't I using AI to replace them in my drive-through right now?
Maybe it's the old man in me, but I'm curious. A while back, I just stopped watching the news, and guess what? I do not miss it. I stopped watching the NFL. Don't miss it. And I have a couple of things that I still do that I used to do from the olden days, but just as I've matured and as I've seasoned my life into something that I reliably enjoy all these things, and I do these things because I have to, but I don't bring a lot of new stuff in. And I'm becoming less and less inclined to even need a phone or a computer for a lot of things in my life. And it doesn't make me a Luddite, but it makes me someone that's like, this thing is I'm making different decisions now on how I consume my time. I'm probably spending too much time on X, and I'm going to start weaning off of that. I might even turn my check mark off, because I've been doing this on X for a while now, and I can't reliably get past 4,000 people following me, whatever, right? And even the people that do actively follow and interact with me, most of them are shitty to me. So I'm like, hey, if I didn't do that, I bet I wouldn't miss it. And I'm just going to go do what I do, just make these great shows, still use emails, like there's ways to communicate, but I'm more inclined to be, and I don't want to say Luddite, because that's not true. There's got to be a word for someone who's like, I'm just going to be cagey with how I allow access to my emotions, my mind, my eyes. And I'm just not going to use it as much anymore. I'm saying that. I also know it's addicting to me. It's not good for my brain. It's not good for my neck. And so all these other problems. Why am I using this thing so much?
We are at this point where, like I talked about, separating content from engagement, in my social media, as a professional thing. We are at a point where engagement matters a lot. Like, if nobody's paying attention to you, nobody pays attention to me, nobody's going to learn how, like this framework for being a dissident. That's not the word. Not for criticism. What was the word, Pete?
Skepticism.
Skepticism. This is terrible. I invented this thing. I spit this phrase out to you last night. I immediately knew it was brilliant, and then I can't remember what it was. Right?
What? Yeah, right.
But nobody's gonna, I have to get people engaged in order for them to see that message and then want to talk to me deeper. That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
That of course is your problem with why you're spitting out these random shorts or these random AI clips, is you're trying to get people engaged so that they come to you and have a deeper conversation and maybe want to do business with you. I mean, that's what that's all about. So we have to play in those arenas, because that's how it is. But I do think we're coming to a point where scarcity is going to make you valuable, where just not giving a shit, people are going to say, well, wait, why doesn't Pete give a shit? I need to go pay him money to give a shit. That we're going to cycle around to that. It's the popular girl, in high school. She doesn't have to do anything. In fact, the less she does, the more popular she gets. How weird is that?
Yeah. I mean, that's possible, but there are some substantial walls between me and whatever, if my show does great, that's great. My show is fantastic. It's so successful. I wouldn't ask one more thing from it. Right. But if 500 people started listening to every episode while I was live, it would be a shock to me. And I wouldn't know where it came from. It would come out of a bolt out of the blue, because I've tried SEO, all the things, right? You try all those things, and your show just is what it is. I just recently started publishing on podcast channels again, and reliably, more people are listening. But I know from my own experience, there's a cap on how much that growth is there, because no one else is trying to actually help me. Actually, the inverse is true. They're all trying to lift somebody above me. That person drives attention. In their mind better than I do, right? Breaking an act is not a thing anymore. It's all about who is the act, and stuffing, hands into their pockets to pull money out of that person's pockets.
And your problem when you grow is not going to be that you have more people. You're going to have new and different problems you didn't want. Give you an example. Right. Our friend on Twitter, Gyrus, he had a tweet about this crazy moron who shot the CEO. And he had a tweet about that go like super viral for no reason apparent. He doesn't get viral tweets, and it's got thousands of likes, hundreds of retweets, and hundreds of comments. I made a comment on that tweet, and my comment went viral. And for the past 3 days, every time I log into Twitter, there are 10 replies that are, "You're an idiot. You're talking about, it's like, it's like, you're stupid. The proletariat is rising up. They're going to kill everybody that doesn't work with their hands." I'm like, well, wait a minute here. I wanted nothing to do with this. I was probably making a joke to begin with, and it came up serious. And now you guys are like, I'm suddenly defending CEOs. Oh, well, wait a minute. This is so weird.
You haven't seen Battleship Potemkin. You don't know anything.
Right. This is I did not want to get drawn into this. I just, kind of wanted to say, hey, we don't shoot CEOs in the back. That's not how justice works.
Right. Right. Oh, and by the way, when you do that and you have a bad back, and you go to prison, you're still gonna have a bad back.
Yeah, exactly. Is that the latest excuse? I have no idea. Got to tell you on that guy, I just find it weird that girls think he's hot. I think he looks like a monkey. Also, his teeth are jacked up. He's got good front teeth, but if he opened his mouth just a little bit, you'd see these molars that are about like a tenth the height they're supposed to be.
I don't really want to get distracted by that, because if we're just going to ramble, we'll just wrap it.
But see that
when someone comes to you and they are running a business and they're like, I want help.
Yeah.
I hear you. I believe you. I hear the frustration from Pete. I hear it from you. How do you help a business?
Well, I listen. I have to listen. I have to see, what do you think AI is doing? It's like you asked me, Brad, what should AI do? And I said, I'm not going to tell you what AI does or should do. It does what it does. So let's look at what it does. Let's look at what you want to do. Let's see if there's a match. Let's see if there's a path. And you know what? If there's not a match and there's not a path to being a match, let's say not now. Let's say keep doing what you're doing. Let somebody else take the arrows. Let somebody else pave this path, pay for that. And then you come along and use it when it's free to use or cheap to use. That's the right way to do this. That is not a strategy anybody wants to hear right now.
Yeah. So if I want to use AI to take care of my email campaign, what's your advice on that?
Don't waste your time, Pete. It'll turn out just like your AI clips. Same way. Right. It'll turn out just like that. You'll be just as frustrated and you'll say, Brad, why am I doing this? And well, you're doing this because you want this engagement. Somebody says, and it might get better. Oh, today it's the worst it'll ever be. It's going to get better every day. That's why we should be doing it now. Yeah. Okay.
When the AI robot is going to be predictive analysis on what's going to be viral. Yeah. And he gives me an 82, which I don't know what that means. 82%. I don't know. That's just what I think.
Sounds good.
Yeah. What is that number coming from? And then when it gives me a 60, like, what the fuck's wrong with that one?
Yeah. Straight up its ass. I mean, just treat it like that. That's where it's coming from.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. I'm going to ignore that. That's not useful information right now. Now, when that becomes useful information, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to keep that carrot in front of you. Then I'll pay attention to it when it's useful. But you have to go do that. You can't just give me a number and say this is it.
Yeah, because maybe it's just its own score. Like, I like these tokens. This is a good tokeny one.
It could be.
I hardly had to do any work. Maybe that's what that number means. I don't know. They don't tell
Pete,
me.
The Bible of influence. It's actually called Influence, Science, and Practice by Robert Cialdini. He talks about, when you're trying to tell a kid to do something and they say, why should I do it? And you just say, because. And then whatever you say after because doesn't matter. And so that gets shortened sometimes to because. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to comply because you said because. People are so weird. Like biologically, we're so weird. All we have to hear is because, and we know we will comply. Okay, score 80. What are you going to do, Pete? You're going to post it. You're going to go do something with it because I told you it was 80. Exactly. I don't have to tell you, I don't have to tell you why. I just have to tell you because, and you'll go do it because you're wired that way.
Right.
That's a lot of what's going on. It's a lot of what's going on.
That desire to just simply outwork the problem, right? Like, I'm just going to out hustle people. I've posted enough shorts now that I should have seen some substantial growth, and I have not. And so it's not quitting; it's pivoting. It's like, hey, that didn't work. I tried catching footballs with frying pans in my hands. That didn't work. So it's not that I'm a quitter. It's that I found a way to not catch footballs.
You should have your toe in the pond, in a pond all the time. Like you should not have your toes in ponds, but the toe should just be in the pond. The toe in the pond does not mean that you're committed to swimming. It means my toes in the pond. I'm paying attention, but you've got to sell me on this.
Right. No, and I do remain busy doing that. Like, I have looked into these AI clip makers. I spent a lot of money on them, trying to understand them. I spent money on ads and spent money on PR. I spent money on all these things. And in some measure, all of that work at minimum informs me about the marketplace. And so when someone says, hey, this is what I want to do, and I'm like, you know what? And this is ultimately my advice to podcast. Don't do one, right? And it's not bitterness. It's like, I'm just telling you, like, if you want to get a business that's going to monetize, go buy a franchise. Find the cheapest one that you can tolerate doing and follow their path. They actually have a path towards money. Those things tend to work. If you want to start a business, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of attention, has an enormous failure rate before you even get to 10 episodes and then have no reasonable expectation of money, then you should podcast. But for the most part, I would say don't do it. And if you do it, spend as little money as possible, use your time. And if it's not worth your time, it's certainly not worth your money. That's my basic advice. And it's going to remain to be true because these things are really hard to sort out. You can't add a robot into that equation to dramatically improve the outcome for a new podcaster.
So what I'm gonna modify your advice just a little bit, and
please,
it's definitely don't. Okay, but if you do, don't commit 100%. Commit enough. That you can get some benefit out of it, but be able to pull back. And maybe it's not don't commit 100% to the activity, right? It's yes, commit 100% to podcasting, but there are supporting activities like using this email feature, using these clips, whatever else. Don't commit 100% to that. Just keep experimenting with them, expecting them to fail and being comfortable if they fail. One day you'll find something that doesn't. Be ready for that. Right.
And part of my overall approach is that, like, hey, let's wait on t-shirts. Let's see if we can publish 10 episodes and have energy to keep going. Let's not make like 10, like, whoo, totally worn out and almost burned out, but we made it to 10. Like, and now let's add t-shirts. No. Let's figure out how to get across. I always use swimming as an example. Let's figure out how to reliably get across the pool. So that getting across the pool, that's just nothing. That's just what you do. Then add in breaststroke, then add in, a different kind of kit or whatever it is. Because if you do say this is how it's going to be and you foresee the outcome, I'm going to be winning a gold medal doing 400-meter butterfly, I'm going to tell you right now, that ain't happening, right? And it's the same thing with podcasts. If you're going to compete with Joe Rogan, good fucking luck, and that's just Joe Rogan. There's so many names of people out there. So if you aren't already a name in your business, you have to establish yourself as a name to go anywhere with your podcast that's super niche. And then now you're just playing in your little niche. So maybe you can get 200 people that listen to you, which would be remarkable, by the way. Now you have to figure out how to monetize 200 people.
And I would say the same with if you're trying to incorporate AI into your personal processes or your business, which is you're not going to be an expert at this right away. There are too many people that are, out hustling you, started early. Excuse me.
You're earlier, right? Yeah.
Start earlier, putting more effort, that sort of stuff. What you need to do is you need to be willing to go in and take the easy wins, do the things that it works well with, and, wait for more easy wins. Pete, my voice is gone.
That's it. Well, let's wrap this thing. Everybody else, I will see you, I think, tomorrow. And otherwise, have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching the Break It Down.